What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing back at you again. Today's topic: Jake Paul refuses to answer the call out from two-time undisputed champ Clarissa T-Rex Shields. Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the money for minutes, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That life you for riches, huh? That life you for riches, huh? Pretty bitch, show me titties, huh? And I got the glazzy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, let's talk some boxing. So, I don't know if a lot of you guys know it, but Clarissa T-Rex Shields, two-time undisputed champion, self-described GOAT, has called out Logan Paul on a few occasions. However, we haven't gotten a response from Logan Paul, or excuse me, Jake Paul, as yet. So basically, Clarissa Shields says she's willing to fight Jake Paul and she's ready to fight him, and that she's saying that a lot of people might pick Jake Paul because he's a man, but she's she's an Olympic champion, a two-time undisputed champion, and she feels that she can take Jake Paul out. Okay, but she says that a lot of people might think that because he's a man he's gonna win, but there's no such thing. She would take him out if he decides that he wants to take up a challenge and fight her. So there it is. Okay, so Clarissa Shields stepped up to the plate. She's ready to fight Jake Paul. However, we haven't heard any response from Jake Paul about this call out. I don't think he has said anything about it. He's been basically quiet as a church mouse when it comes to that call out from Clarissa Shields. So I'm wondering what's going on with that. I mean, Jake Paul is a celebrity, YouTube fighter, really. Even though he's claiming that he's a pro boxer, but he hasn't actually fought any pro boxers yet. So I mean, as far as I can see, I mean, if you're fighting celebrities, you're a celebrity fighter. I mean, you fought a basketball player, you fought a UFC striking challenged wrestler in Ben Askren, Funky Askren, and Anson Gibb, who was not a boxer either. So basically, Jake Paul is just fighting, names, celebrity names, and he hasn't actually fought a real boxer as yet, and it doesn't look like he's going to be fighting a real boxer anytime soon. So I would think that a fight with Clarissa Shields, I mean, maybe he's afraid to fight men boxers. I'm not sure if that's the case. Maybe he doesn't think he's ready to fight actual, real boxers yet, since he's just started out, and he's basically a rookie in the boxing game. So, I mean, maybe, he can fight Clarissa Shields. She's a woman, and so that means that he's supposed to have an advantage because he's a man, quote unquote, so you would think that would be a challenge that he'd be willing to take. I mean, Clarissa Shields is also a celebrity. I mean, she's one of the most celebrated women fighters, well, not one of the most, she is the most celebrated woman fighter of this generation. So, her celebrity status is up there. So that would be a great fight for Jake Paul, I would think. You know what I mean? So I would love to see that fight now, whether Jake Paul wants to take on something like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, him losing to a woman, quote unquote, I don't know how that would look for his brand, but but I mean, we're not just talking about any woman here. We're talking about Clarissa T-Rex Shields, the greatest female boxer of this generation, according to most. Okay, so according to most people that follow boxing. Okay, so that should be an interesting fight, and I would think that it's definitely a big celebrity fight. I think, as a matter of fact, that would be the biggest fight for Jake Paul's career at this point if he were to take on Clarissa Shields. But for some reason, it looks like Jake Paul is not really up for that fight. He hasn't said anything about it. Hasn't responded to Clarissa. Typically, when somebody calls out Jake Paul, he usually responds. But in the case of Clarissa, he's been silent, like I said, as a church mouse. Not a whisper. Nothing at all from Jake Paul about this fight with Clarissa Shields. A fight that I think a lot of people would be interested in. I think that would be a big pay-per-view fight. It would be a great fight, and I'm definitely would be one of the people that would pay for that pay-per-view fight. And I think millions of people would actually pay for that fight. So why is it that Jake Paul is not responding to Clarissa Shields? Why? I mean, you would think that there would be some kind of response because he's basically, raising ruckus and to respond to Clarissa, even if he just did it on Twitter or something like that, that would have a lot of interest. But maybe Jake Paul is afraid of a strong black woman. Maybe he doesn't want to get beat. By Clarissa Shields. Okay, I mean, if she could beat him, we don't know that. I mean, I would think that she should be able to beat a Jake Paul. I mean, she's been boxing for quite a while, and even though he's fairly good at what he's doing as a celebrity boxer, I don't know if he could be able to, to take on somebody like Clarissa and win in a real fight. I mean, it's definitely an interesting thought, but I mean, who knows who would win? Now it would be interesting, definitely. But I think Jake Paul, is not showing any interest in that fight. Probably because he think that he could possibly lose to Clarissa Shields, and I don't think his fan base would ever let him forget that. So I think that that's probably the main reason why he doesn't want to respond to that. He doesn't want people really calling for that fight too much, because if people started really getting interested and start calling for that fight, and he refused to take the fight, then people would say that he's ducking Clarissa Shields, okay, which is probably just as bad as losing to Clarissa Shields, if you're perceived as ducking Clarissa Shields. But to me, at the end of the day, the fact that he's not responding, I mean, could qualify as a duck at the end of the day, okay? So he should at least make some kind of answer to a call out, whether or not he's not interested or what. He should be saying something, but we're not hearing nothing from him about this call out from Clarissa Shields. And Clarissa Shields is not the only one that called him out, the only woman that called him out. We also hear that the lioness, Amanda Nunes, has called him out as well. Okay, which would be another interesting fight, Amanda Nunes versus Jake Paul. That would be a great fight. I would pay to see that. Okay. But, these two women have called out Jake Paul, and we haven't heard a word, a peep from Jake Paul, about these women calling him out, whether it be Clarissa Shields or Amanda Nunes. Okay, and I'm wondering, why is that? I mean, here's a guy that's out there looking for publicity all the time, and I mean, you think there will be a lot of publicity in a fight between him and Amanda Nunes or him and Clarissa Shields, but we're not hearing nothing from Jake Paul. So I don't know if these women, if Jake Paul is afraid of these women, okay, because they're real fighters. I mean, we all know, how Amanda Nunes gets down, and we all know how Clarissa Shields gets down. They're very, Amanda Nunes is an MMA fighter, but she's a pretty good boxer as well. And we all know Clarissa Shields is the top female boxer in the world today, and she's getting ready to go into MMA, soon as well. So maybe Jake Paul is afraid of the skills that Clarissa Shields is gonna bring to the table. Even though he claims he's a real boxer, and he's a good boxer, maybe Clarissa Shields is probably just a little bit. Maybe he thinks that Clarissa Shields is a little bit too much for him at this point, and maybe he's not ready to take on a Clarissa Shields. Maybe he feels he needs a couple more fights you know, maybe 5 or 6 more fights. Maybe he needs to get a record to about 10 or something, 11, 12 fights. And then maybe he feel he'd be ready for somebody like Clarissa Shields. But if that's the case, he should just say that. You know, say you're not ready yet. You know what I mean? But I would definitely like to see that fight. And you know, Jake Paul, you know, if he's as good a boxer as he claims to be, okay, that would be the fight for him to take on right now. Would be Clarissa Shields. That would be a great fight. I would definitely look forward to a fight like that. And I think a lot of fans would want to see that fight. I'm pretty sure Clarissa's fans would want to see that fight, and so would probably Jake Paul's fans. Okay, that would be a great fight to make, and that fight would bring a lot of publicity to both fighters, and it would be a lot of money for both fighters as well. You know, I think that would be a you know, that would do very well in pay-per-view. I mean, we're talking about the male versus female, you know, the whole male versus female thing, you know what I mean? I can see that fight being one of the biggest fights, you know, of 2021 or 2022 if they was to make it in early 2022. So I don't know what, you know, is going through Jake Paul's mind, why he's not responding to these call-outs from these women. But you know, we live in a liberated world, so to speak, now, and I think that, I mean, I don't know what the legality is of a fight like that. If that fight could legally be made, you know, between a man and a woman, but I don't think there should be any reason why it can't be made. Okay, and if they fought an exhibition fight under the exhibition fight rules, maybe they can do that fight. If not under actual boxing rules, I don't know. But I would like to see that fight. Okay. Let's see where Jake Paul really is, you know, with his skills. If he can take on a real boxer,